On this edition of Primetime News, South Korean military officials were in the hot seat at the National Assembly after yesterday's deadly shooting at a reservist training camp. We have the latest on the investigation into that incident. And former Prime Minister Lee Wan-koo asserted his innocence after undergoing questioning by prosecutors over his alleged involvement in a bribery scandal. Speaking to reporters, he said, "Nothing in the world beats the truth." The OECD projects the Korean economy will rebound in the second half of the year, while the IMF went the opposite direction and further cut Korea's growth forecast for this year. Korea's finance minister also weighed in, saying the economy is on the path to recovery, but the pace of growth may be less than robust. All up next on our newscast.
Hello and welcome to Primetime News on this Thursday, May 14th. I'm Hwang Ji-hye.
And I'm Daniel Che. Thank you for joining us. Let us begin with the latest on the military camp shooting incident that left 3 dead, including the shooter.
The Korean Army says Wednesday's shooting spree was planned and that the reservist not only alluded to the shootings and text messages he sent to a friend, but had a history of mental illness.
Our Na Young-kyung has more on the preliminary investigation results.
On May 12th, I'll be a dead person. Goodbye. Che sent that text message to a friend prior to the shooting. May 12th is the day the mandatory 3-day training session for reservists began. The shooting spree happened the next day. Officials say Che told a drill instructor that he wanted to use the far-left shooting lane during the training session. This is one of the reasons the Army believes he had carefully planned the shooting. The position not only put him farther away from instructors, but it also meant he wouldn't have to worry about being taken down by the people behind him. The Army says it's still investigating the exact motive, but it did say Che had sought psychiatric help on 6 separate occasions before and after his service.
When he was serving in the Army, he was classified as a soldier in need of special care due to depression and maladaptation. He was also reassigned 4 times.
Che is said to have been under a lot of stress beginning earlier this year after he had tried but failed to earn a welding certificate. Thursday's investigative report also revealed that the shooting happened in a span of 10 seconds and that there were 9 controllers and instructors on site, none of whom were able to stop Che. The military is expected to face tough questioning, especially with regard to safety rules, as Che's rifle, which was supposed to have been chained to the ground, was loose, enabling him to carry out his plan. Na Hyun-kyo, Arirang News.
And staying with the reservist training camp shooting spree.
Prior to the Army's announcement of the results of its preliminary investigation into the incident, Defense Ministry officials had to face some tough questions from lawmakers.
That's right, and for details, we turn to our Kim Young-gil.
Lawmakers lashed out at Defense Ministry and Army officials questioning why a reservist with a record of mental health issues was allowed to attend the training. Defense Ministry officials reported that the 23-year-old gunman, Che, had been sent from one unit to another as he failed to adapt to his military life during mandatory service.
The Defense Ministry will conduct a thorough probe into the accident to resolve any suspicions. We promise to prevent tragic recurrences in the future. We express condolences to the victims and their bereaved families and to those who are hurt.
Defense Committee members also asked why 9 active duty soldiers, including 3 captains, at the site during the practice shooting didn't take action to prevent casualties. They were positioned to ensure the safety of 20 firing lines during the drill. Lawmakers said they doubted whether the supervisors took proper security procedures and reprimanded the military's lax management of training and weapons. The Army promised to put safety first.
The Defense Ministry has issued guidelines to strengthen the safety of shooting practices and will thoroughly assess the accident to devise measures to overhaul the reserve forces training system.
All Korean men must complete nearly 2 years of mandatory military service, and they go on to the reserve forces, where they attend regular training to maintain skills and readiness. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
We now move over to the latest bribery scandal. Former Prime Minister Lee Wan-koo appeared before prosecutors today for questioning over allegations he took kickbacks. Addressing a crowd of reporters, he apologized for causing public concern and said nothing in the world beats the truth. When asked about the accusation, Lee refused to answer. He's suspected of accepting roughly $27,000 from late businessman Hong Wan-jong back in 2013 during his campaign for a parliamentary seat. The former prime minister is the second official on Seong's bribery list to face questioning following Governor Hong Jun-pyo of Gyeongsang-namdo province.
Despite the ongoing political instability in North Korea, the reclusive regime forged ahead with military drills near the maritime border with the south on Wednesday. Our Han Da-eun has more on Seoul's response to that action.
Seoul's Unification Ministry says North Korea should realize that its repeated provocations do not at all help to improve inter-Korean ties. The remarks come after Pyongyang conducted military exercises near the northern limit line late Wednesday night, live firing some 130 artillery shells from warships. Stressing that Pyongyang's provocations continue despite Seoul's efforts to thaw relations, the ministry urged the north to stop all threats and verbal attacks. However, officials emphasized that Seoul will stick to its Korean Peninsula trust process despite Pyongyang's hostility. First initiated by President Park Geun-hye, the trust process aims to achieve peaceful reunification with the North through dialogue and exchange. As for the escalating wage spat at the inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex, the ministry said North Korea's unilateral decision to raise the minimum wage is illegal under the Kaesong Industrial Complex law established by the regime. Meanwhile, Unification Minister Hong Yong-pyo, during an executive meeting Thursday, ordered the National Intelligence Service to keep a close eye on the political situation in Pyongyang while maintaining stable inter-Korean relations. Han Da-eun, Arirang News.
And today, once again, North Korea fired artillery shells into the West Sea near the de facto maritime border known as the Northern Limit Line, or NLL. The South Korean military says the North began the drill at 7:10 p.m. on Thursday, though none of the shells landed on the south side of the highly patrolled waters. No clashes have been reported as of yet. Pyongyang notified Seoul of the drill Wednesday before firing off some 130 shells. The regime said the drill will continue until Friday.
And with the world still in shock at North Korea's public execution of its defense minister, the United States has condemned Pyongyang, labeling it a merciless regime. Kim Hyun-bin takes a look at the U.S. reaction and gives us the view from abroad.
He's at it again. Just 16 months after personally ordering his uncle Chang Song-taek be put to death, Kim Jong-un gave the green light for the execution of his defense minister Hyun Yong-chol for supposedly disrespecting him and slacking off on the job. Korea's National Intelligence Service said on Thursday that there is information indicating that Hyun's family had to stand witness to the execution late last month, watching as shells from an anti-aircraft gun tore Hyun's body to shreds. The U.S. government says that, if the reports are correct, the execution shows the depths of depravity the young leader is willing to go to.
I'm not in a position to confirm any of those specifics, but these disturbing reports, if they are true, describe another extremely brutal act by the North Korean regime.
Citing related experts and analysts, international media outlets, such as the BBC and the UK-based Guardian newspaper, say Kim Jong-un's latest move could give cause for concern about North Korea's stability. An analyst told the BBC that Hyun's execution is a clear indication that Kim does not feel secure. Another told The Guardian that the situation as it stands looks quite worrisome. North Korea has, for the moment at least, not commented on the reports. South Korea's spy agency says Kim Jong-un has ordered the execution of around 70 senior officials since coming to power in late 2011. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
And the gruesome public execution is again drawing attention to the regime's rampant human rights violations. Arirang News' Hwang Sung-hee turned to Greg Scarlatti, Executive Director of the Committee for Human Rights in North Korea, for his insight on the issue.
North Korea is executing its senior officers in the most gruesome way, according to Greg Scarlett, executive director of the Committee for Human Rights in North Korea.
You're talking about an execution by ZPU-4 anti-aircraft machine gun. If you're talking about a person being hit by automatic fire, by 50 caliber rounds, you're literally talking about bodies being pulverized, obliterated, turned into pink mist.
Last month, Scarlett released the first ever satellite images of a public execution of roughly 10 senior North Korean officers at Ganggun shooting range. He calls the killings a clear human rights violation, but adds the high-level executions could help bring about a change in the regime.
And remember, this is, after all, a Confucian or post-Confucian culture. Having something left, having a body, is very important. But they simply obliterated every trace, any trace that this person ever existed is eliminated. Now, certainly these executions have had a lot of coverage. So I believe that this will indeed result in enhanced awareness internationally.
What's behind the brutality, says Scarlett, is the young North Korean leader's insecurity. Noting Pyongyang's ties with Beijing have suffered after the execution of Chang Sung-taek, who was the North's point man on China, he says the recent execution of Defense Chief Hyun Young-chul may hurt relations with Russia. Hyun was the point man on Moscow and even met with the Russian president last year. If those factors cause the situation to deteriorate, Scarlett foresees more gruesome killings that could eventually shake up the entire regime.
For this reason, the regime continues to be unstable, and unfortunately, for as long as the regime continues to be unstable, the supreme leader, who also happens to be quite insecure, will be very tempted to continue with this gruesome practice and with these executions.
And could these constant purges and executions in turn destabilize the Kim Jong-un regime?
We're coming to the realization that the highest ranking officials of North Korea are also victims of human rights violations. I wonder, wouldn't those same elites of North Korea start wondering about their own survival if even the most loyal of loyalists who have served the Kim family for decades are not safe? Then who is?
Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Staying on the topic of North Korea, a South Korean parliamentary subcommittee has verified Pyongyang's recent claim that it fired a ballistic missile from a submarine. On Thursday, a member of the Parliamentary Intelligence Committee said the National Intelligence Service had refuted an earlier claim by a U.S. expert that the North launched a missile from a submerged barge. The expert said that the regime may have photoshopped its test photos to exaggerate the progress of its missile development program. The committee member went on to say that the spy agency is searching for accurate evidence of whether the launch was successful or not. Korea and Bulgaria have agreed to hold their first high-level economic meeting in October to seek ways to increase bilateral trade and investments. The two countries are celebrating 25 years of diplomatic ties this year. Two-way trade volume was recorded just over $300 million last year, and officials from both sides see a potential to further increase trade through the Korea-EU FTA. President Park Geun-hye and visiting Bulgarian President Rosen Plevneliev also discussed diversifying their cooperation, agreeing to further look into having Korean firms participate in Bulgaria's large-scale infrastructure projects. Seoul and Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria, signed several deals, such as ones to expand cooperations in defense, science and technology, and culture. Bulgaria also backed President Park's unification policy and peace initiative in Northeast Asia.
Analysts project economic growth by examining a number of indicators, but this year they seem to be getting and giving some mixed signals on the Korean economy. Our Song Ji-sun reports.
The Korean economy is on track for expansion with a brighter outlook for the latter half of this year, according to the OECD's latest composite leading indicator, or CLI index. A figure over 100 on that index means the economy is heading towards expansion. Korea climbed up to 102 in March, the highest in nearly 4 years. The US and China are both under 100. On the other hand, the International Monetary Fund Korea's growth forecast for this year from 3.3 down to 3.1%. Those predictions have been dropping since October. The IMF also noted that last year's Seoul affair disaster had an adverse effect on the economy and called on the Korean government to seek further stimulus measures. However, Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan said on Thursday that the Korean economy is on a recovery path, but the pace of growth is not enough to assure foreign investors. In its monthly economy report, the Finance Ministry said real indicators are improving across all sectors, both in production and consumption, but private think tanks say lagging exports are holding the economy back from true recovery. 송지선, Arirang News.
Although Korea-Japan relations have consistently worsened over history disputes, business leaders from both countries are calling for stronger economic cooperation.
Our Kwon reports on progress made at their annual business meeting taking place in Seoul this Thursday.
This year, the annual Korea-Japan Business Conference fell on the 50th anniversary of normalized diplomatic ties between the two countries. That may seem ironic, considering the ongoing high-level impasse over historical tensions. However, business leaders interested in improving economic cooperation may be the best option for a breakthrough. Korea and Japan face many similar economic problems, such as the growing aging population and low labor participation of women compared to men. Despite those common challenges, their exports and imports have been going downhill, and their $170 billion currency swap ended earlier this year.
Bilateral finance policies cannot succeed without trust and support from the political arena. That's why we have to find a way to make a breakthrough to improve cooperation.
A joint statement adopted at Thursday's meeting might help. It includes plans to create new businesses together in third countries and cooperation on big sporting events like the Pyeongchang Winter and Tokyo Summer Olympics. The statement also focused on fast-tracking possible trade pacts.
FTA or EPA between Korea and Japan, that negotiation started, I think, almost 10 years ago, but it was suspended long time. And in the meantime, the FTA between China and Korea was agreed upon in February. And now, therefore, most important thing for us is to expedite and restart the negotiation, FTA, EPA between Japan and Korea.
Kamezaki said he hopes negotiations between Korea and Japan will be swifter than the three-way talks, including China. Later this month, Korea and Japan expect to hold the first ministerial-level trade talks in 2 years, offering hope economic ties will improve in the next 50 years. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Now for the top international headlines around the world, we connect to Paul Yi at the News Center.
Paul, let's begin with Japan. The country's cabinet has approved a group of controversial bills that will allow its military to fight overseas if a close ally is attacked. How significant is this move?
Well, it's been described as the most dramatic shift in Japanese defense policy since the end of World War II. The planned changes set the stage for Tokyo to play a greater role in the Japan-U.S. alliance. And also, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe defended the move as a way to deter threats and secure world peace.
Those who irresponsibly say that this is a war bill are absolutely wrong. These bills are meant to consider all sorts of possibilities and prepare for a seamless defense in order to protect the lives of Japanese citizens and to protect their peaceful livelihoods.
The so-called collective self-defense doctrine has been under intense scrutiny from Seoul and Beijing. Ahead of the cabinet's approval, both countries warned Tokyo to exercise restraint and be transparent about its plans. The security legislation is widely expected to pass in the Japanese parliament on Friday. And turning now to the latest on the catastrophic train crash in the U.S. city of Philadelphia. The preliminary results of the ongoing investigation show the Amtrak passenger train was traveling at twice the speed limit when the driver slammed on the emergency brakes just moments before it flew off the tracks.
Maximum authorized speed through this curve was 50 miles per hour. When the engineer-induced brake application was applied, the train was traveling at approximately 106 miles per hour.
Investigators also found that Amtrak had not installed a mandated safety control system that would have stopped the train from speeding out of control and prevented the fatal accident. And shifting to the Philippines, police are set to launch a criminal investigation into a massive factory fire that has killed at least 72 people. Several more bodies were retrieved Thursday from the wreckage of the two-story rubber slipper factory in the capital, Manila. Authorities say the fire started yesterday when sparks from a welding machine triggered a large chemical explosion. About 200 to 300 people were said to be working at the site, and there are reports that many were trapped inside, unable to escape the blaze. And finally, Facebook is launching a new feature called Instant Articles that aims to bring the latest news faster and easier to its billion-plus users. The company announced Tuesday a partnership with 9 major media outlets, including the New York Times, BuzzFeed, and the National Geographic. It will allow them to directly publish articles to the social network's mobile news feeds. Experts say the move could represent one of the biggest changes to the publishing industry in a long time.
Facebook has 1.4 billion active users. If you can start to get your journalism in front of them and there's an economic upside to it, I think it's going to be really hard for publishing companies to resist this. So really they're at the moment thinking, let's experiment, let's see if we make any money.
According to a study by Pew Research, about 30% of Americans already get their news from Facebook. As per the latest deal, the social networking giant will let the news firms track user data and traffic, renewing fresh concerns over digital privacy. And that wraps up our look at international stories for now. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
We had another warm and sunny day today, but it's shaping up to be a different story tomorrow, which is Teachers' Day here in Korea. There will be a drop in temperatures across the nation, and the eastern parts of the peninsula will have much cooler conditions due to easterly winds. The country will kick off the day under lots of clouds, and people in the southern coastal areas grab an umbrella. There are showers in the forecast with up to 20 millimeters of rainfall expected. But the capital and the surrounding areas could see some sun coming out by the afternoon, but also beware that the fine dust levels could go up higher than usual for the central parts. And as for tomorrow's readings, behind Seoul will get up to 23, while Daegu and Gwangju hit 27 and 25, and Busan will stay cool, peaking at 21 tomorrow afternoon. And as for the other regions, Daejeon and Jeju Island will see a high of 25 and 23, while Dokdo rises to 18. It seems like temperatures will go back to the warm side again on Saturday, so the weather should cooperate for any of you planning to be outdoors this weekend. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
And this is just coming in. North Korea has stopped firing its drills for now.
Right, the drill has come to a stop for now because they fired around 190 rounds of artillery. And we'll have more updates in our later newscast. For now, that's all we have. And we've come to the end of our newscast. Thank you so much for staying with us. This has been Daniel Che.
And I'm Hwang Jie. Please join us at the same time tomorrow. Goodbye for now.